Hey folks, it's Keith, Victor Echo 3 Sierra Victor Quebec, back with another quick video which we're going to look at today, and we're going to call it How Do You Get Faster? Probably one of the most common questions an instructor will get, and certainly one that bothers a lot of people is how do I get faster? So there's lots of different opinions on that. Matter of fact, if you were to ask 100 ham radio operators, how do you get faster in Morse code? You're probably going to get 100 different answers. But there are certain things which seem to be common with most people. So what I'm going to do today is just talk about what I did. What worked for me. Will it work for you? Maybe not. Maybe it will. But these are just some suggestions. And again, I'm going to use the LICW practice page because I do teach for them. Again, like I said, full disclosure, I do teach the BC1 class there for them. Um, I would suggest that you can use this page. It is there. It's an easy one to find. Just go to the Long Island CW Club main page. Top right corner, there's a drop down menu, and there's the practice page. They keep it free. Anyone can use it. I would suggest if you're doing that, also take a look at some of the other things the club offers. There's all sorts of activities. They have antenna classes, they have POTA classes, they have get on the air classes, all sorts, besides just learning your basic, letters, numbers, prosigns, and so on. So do that. And yeah, sure, use their page, but like I said, why not check it out? Before I studied with the LICW, I was on my own and one of those independent people. I don't like to do classes. I like to do things on my own. So I did, found a very good website. It's a very popular one for people who are learning on their own. And the only thing I found with it, and I didn't know that at the time, was they were suggesting character speed, basically 20 words per minute, so-called Farnsworth speed or word speed if you want at 15 words per minute. And they didn't like you to go, change those numbers too much when you started. Now, if you're going to start at 20 over 15, that's pretty fast stuff. And I think that was one of the reasons it took me so long to eventually, switch over to the LICW and finish my CW off. Um, I just kept getting discouraged because they send in 5 letter groups. So, you're learning the letters and you've got the individual letter, and then you go, okay, let's practice. And 5 letter groups coming at you at 20 and 15. Try that sometime on your own. It's a lot of fun, but I found for myself I got discouraged. Now, LICW starts at 12 and 8. So, fairly slow if you want. Be surprised though the number of people who are out there really pretty close to that speed when you're talking to them on the air. And at the same time, by the time you're finished level 1 or the BC1 classes, and you go up to the BC2, most people are going to be doing around 12 and 10. And by the time they finish with the BC2, they're probably up pretty close to 12 and 12. And that is a very comfortable speed for a lot of people making their contacts on the air. And I've got other videos where people say what they think the average speed is, for most of the activities they do. And I think you'll be surprised at exactly what that number is. And that's on a different video. I think most people will also agree that one of the things you have to do in order to send faster, you have to be able to listen to faster code as well. So don't be afraid if you're out, say, you're at 12 and 8 as an example, BC1 with the LICW. Don't be afraid to listen to code somebody sending it 12 and 12 or 15 and 15. Pick the letters out, pick the spaces for the words out. Every little bit helps and will help you get faster as well. So if you want to copy faster down the road, try listen to some faster code now. Go on the reverse beacon network. Look for people who are sending slightly faster. Tune them in. Listen to them. See if you can copy what they're sending. So there's another very simple step, but definitely listen to some faster code as well. Now, as mentioned, so many of us get hung up on speed. And part of that is we don't really know what the different speeds sound like. So if you can say, I want to do 23 words per minute because you think that's a speed a lot of people are doing. Do you really know what 23 words per minute sounds like? Do you know what 10 words per minute sounds like? So at the early stages, when you're still learning the basic numbers and letters and so on, don't worry about your speed. All right, do whatever course it is that you're taking. Do what they say to do. Work your way through it. Over time, you are going to be faster. But to give you an idea, a lot of people will say, well, 10 words a minute, that's really, really slow. Well, this is what 10 words per minute sounds like using my call sign, using my VE3SVQ call sign, because that was something I wanted to learn was what does my call sign sound like when someone's calling me at different speeds. So here's an example. So this is 10 words per minute. All right, 10 words per minute. So if most of you, if you're just a student, that's actually pretty fast for you at this point. Now, as you get along and as you go do more and more practice and as you get better at it, you might find that a bit slow. But here's another one. I'm just going to change the speed. So this is 12 words per minute. This is exceptionally common when you're on the air in Morse code. There's a lot of people doing 12 words per minute, some 13, 11, what have you. But here's the same call sign, just slightly faster. All right, so you get the idea now. It's getting a little bit harder to copy and get all those letters and numbers down. And, like I say, I find that one of the most common speeds and actually a little bit slower most of the time when people are calling you. And for those that like speed, well, let's just take it up a bit higher. We'll go up to 15 just for the sake of argument. And we'll show that 15, which is a very common speed you'll see when people are doing POTA. And here's the same call sign. Pretty fast. I don't need to go that fast. But there are lots of people who thrive on going fast. There are people who are doing parks. I've seen them 23 words per minute, 30 words per minute. There was one out there a couple of days, well, a couple of days, more than that, a couple of weeks ago. I think he was doing 43 words per minute doing POTA. And I thought, wow, good for him. I don't know how many he's going to find to talk to at that speed. But wow, it must be so nice to be able to go that fast. It's not something I need to do. It's not something I'm interested in doing. But if you are interested in doing that, hey, go for it because that's part of this hobby is we all get to do a little bit that we really enjoy. And if speed is what you like, go for it. I think most people out there will also agree that ICR is absolutely key to developing faster speed, both comprehension wise and down the road sending as well. So, what is ICR? Instant character recognition. From what I can see, pretty well all the groups out there now teach some form of ICR. Some stress it more than others. They might differ in the speeds that they like to use. Some might use 25 and 10 or whatever. Other ones will use different speeds. LICW generally on the practice page, and I'll show you later, it's about 14 and 14. And even that you can change a little bit too. But ICR will really help. For myself, the one weakness with ICR was that you're doing individual letters. It's a beat the computer, right? So the computer will play the sound of the letter and you have to identify it before the computer says what the letter is. It's great fun and great practice and really does sharpen your skills on various letters and punctuation and so on. But it's individual letters. So I find making the jump from doing ICR with individual letters to copying strings of letters, groups of three, groups of five. That was a big jump for me. And I think it is for what I can gather from some of the people I talk to as well. So it's fun to do the ICR, but you also have to take that ICR, take those sounds, take all that work you've done, and now start putting groups of letters together. Now, when you do the computer programs, the letters are not necessarily coming as words, right? They're going to be scrambled. And that's much more difficult than if you're copying somebody and they're actually sending things that you know. right? You could be an abbreviation that you use all the time. It could be the person sending UR, RST. Over time, you're going to recognize that. Are you going to write it down every single time? No, you don't have to, but you will recognize what the person is sending. So that's one of the reasons for doing some of this is that over time, your brain begins to interpret, begins to anticipate what's in there. Your brain will help to fill in some of the gaps. So ICR is good. Spend a lot of time doing it, but then you have to start to do some groups as well. And you may find you can do the ICR at, let's say, 14 and over 14. But when you come to groups, you're only, what, 10 and 9. Work on your groups, right? Try and get to 10 and 10. Then try and go 11, 10. Then 11, 11, and so on. And you can do that on the practice page so that you can actually build up your speed very very successfully. And it doesn't really take that much time, but it does take practice, right? Practice, practice, practice. This is always the issue when you learn Morse code is you always think you're finally finished doing, you've done your letters, you've done your numbers. Oh, thank goodness you can take a break from practicing. Not really. Not if you want to get better. There's always a certain amount of practice involved. You will pick up speed, both in sending and receiving. Once you're on the air and once you're actually doing, live CW, you do get a bit better automatically. It's just one of those things, but it doesn't mean you can turn off the practice page and never go back to it. Because if you want to get better, it's a great way to do it. It's great exercise. It's great practice. Now, this is the LICW practice page. You can see at the top there. When you do the LICW course, we've got, of course, BC1, which is what I teach, which is the first 18 letters that you need to know, then BC2, and you can see BC3 and various intermediate and so on. And if I go down the page, you can also see some of the advanced courses. So it really depends on what you're doing and what your interest is when you get into this. Now, if I show it here, student BC2, and I've got QXV just because I have a Q and two V's in my call, so it's always fun to practice those particular letters. Now, you can go from QXV, you can got all sorts of stuff over in this third column here. Was it 1, 2, 3, fourth column? So there's some of the different reviews you can do. So you can practice this, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So if it's BC2, if you go up over here, BC2 will show you default setting is 12 and 10. So that's the speed they're going to be sending at. You can see your settings here. You can change the settings if you really want to. Nothing wrong with doing that. And the ICR, right here, is down here. So there's your ICR. So if I want to do all of the first 18 letters, and let's say, I don't know, let's go down and do a whole bunch of other things, some numbers and whatever in there. So this is what it's going to sound like. So this is ICR. Remember to beat the computer game. So let's just play it here.
I, E, Q, V.
All right, so that gives you an idea. That's really an ICR practice. So you're trying to beat the computer, trying to get that instant sound recognition. You hear the sound, you know the letter. And it would be the same as if you're talking in whatever language you speak. For instance, if I say the letters O, you know what the letter O is right away. If I say it's the letter S, you know what I'm saying, right? You're not pausing and going, now was that an S or was that whatever? All right, it's instant recognition of the sound. And again, we don't speak in individual letters. We don't say, for instance, I don't say my name is Keith, and I start by saying I am or whatever, Keith. I say Keith, and that's what the person hears. So when you're sending and you're doing your ICR, keep in mind down the road, you have to get to the point where you can recognize words. And Morse Code Ninja has some wonderful exercises in that. And I'll post his site down below here. So Morse Code Ninja is a good one for it. Even this particular one, for instance, if you want to know some of the items that you can do, well, let's just see. There's your ICR. There's something on pro signs. There's some sending practice. On the other side here, QSO abbreviation. So these are other things that you're going to learn. There they are there. So right now they're all covered, but you will recognize over time what people are sending to you. So as an example, if someone says AGN, you're going to pick that out and your brain will basically form a word. It's not going to be hearing individual letters. It's going to form a word, or in this case, it's an abbreviation. Same with the person sends ANT for his antenna. Over time, you're going to be able to recognize that instantly. And one of the ones that I found the easiest to recognize at the end of a conversation when people are wrapping up, they send the letter C and the letter U. So see you, and then you know it's either going to be an L, see you later, or it's going to be see you again, see you AGN. So it takes time. It's not instantaneous that all of this comes together. It takes time. It takes a lot of practice. And again, you have to, as you do this, and like I say, you can play with the speeds. As an example, let's say you want to go up here, QSO abbreviations. So this is what we were just looking at. So I can go up, try it at 14 and 14. That's essentially the standard setting. So what does it sound like at 14 and 14? All right.
ABT, AGE,
So,
AGN.
so now you can see the difference between learning an individual letter and listening to a group of letters. And these are groups of letters that you're going to start to recognize a lot the more you're on the air, because this is the way people are going to send it to you. So the big difference from doing ICR is individual letters and then starting to copy groups of letters. Now these letters make sense because they're abbreviations for the most part. If you're doing the scrambled part where you're doing groups of three or groups of five, much harder because it's basically just scrambled letters. They're not letters that make sense. When you're copying somebody down, some of these abbreviations you'll recognize instantly. You're probably not going to write it down. All right, so if someone sends "see you again," are you going to write that down? Probably not, right? Because you know what they sent. So head copy as you go along is also going to become exceptionally important, especially at the faster speeds. But at the level that we're at here, where you're just learning your letters and you just know your letters and you're trying to pick up the tempo just that little bit, don't panic, right? Don't get worried. There's lots of people sending at this speed. And again, keep in mind, a lot of the higher speeds that you hear, they're not using a straight key. Now, LICW, we like you to start with a straight key. Straight key is what I use. I have a paddle, I've never bothered to use it. I happen to really like a straight key. Now, straight key will limit you to a certain extent as to how high you can go. And you do find for POTA, if you look at all the different POTA videos, a lot of the people doing POTA are using a paddle. They're not using a straight key. And that's just for the words per minute that they're trying to do. So something else that you can keep in mind there. Now, how can you change this around? Well, let's go back to individual letters because it's easier to show. So here's KMY and KMY. We want to do the ICR, so we'll go find ICR over here. And then let's go up to the top of the page. So this is coming 14 and 14. That's what the LICW does their ICR at. So let's hear 14 and 14.
1, K, M, K.
All right, so you can hear those individual letters. You can beat the computer. You can see that's really not that bad. It's something that you can do. Is it getting a little bit too easy? Well, just open up the lock there if you want, and you can maybe go up, I don't know, let's say 17 just for fun. 17 over 14. And you can try that.
1, K, M,
So you can speed up the character speed a bit if you want. You can also go up and say, well, we were doing 14 and 14, let's do 15 and 15. Sort of work your way up one at a time.
Y, K, M,
So you can adjust this. You can adjust the speed. You can adjust the so-called Farnsworth spacing as well, character speed. So you can work your way up with, you know, pretty easily actually. But again, like everything else, it takes practice. And that's the one thing a lot of people don't like to do. They don't like to do the practice. Let's go back to the QSO abbreviations here because just leaving it where it is because we're at 14, 14. So let's go 15, 15 because let's say you can do the 14 easy enough. Now listen to it when it's 3 letters, some cases more coming, right?
ABT,
A lot faster. So that's what you have to work on down the road. All right, you have to work on getting the ability to get all those letters in. If you're writing them down, write them down. If you're doing it in your head, recognize in your head what's coming. So there's different things that you can do. Like the beauty of this particular practice page is it's so versatile. You can play with it and have all sorts of fun. So those are just some of the ideas on here, and you can use different lessons as well. For instance, now again, if you want to practice and figure out different things that you can do and try and recognize words, there's a good exercise right there. So you're on QSO phrases. So these are the type of things that you will get sent to you over time. My rig, very, very common. And then they're going to give you, could be an IC 7300, in this case, Kenwood, all sorts of different things. Antenna is a dipole, antenna is a Yagi, lots of things that people will send you on a regular basis. So it does become a little bit easier to pick out some of this. And again, your best practice, do it here, then turn on your radio and listen to real Morse code, not computer code. Big difference between computer code and real code. And listen to how people send. Listen to the different fifths that the operators have. It'll make a big difference for you down the road. And the last point I want to make is, use the practice page. Whatever organization or whichever website you're using, use the practice page. But the one mistake I don't want you to make is to be the person who's always getting ready to get on the air. In other words, you practice, practice, practice. You're not getting perfect copy, and it's like panic mode. You're just not going to, right? You have to realize that you have to be prepared to miss letters. You'll still probably be able to figure out what the person sent to you, but far too many people waste days, weeks, months. I think even in my own case, I probably wasted 3 months trying to get ready to get on the air, trying to make sure that I could get everything perfect. And then, of course, got on the air, the adrenaline kicked in the first few times, and I made a mess of all sorts of stuff. The only one who cared was me. I was the one who was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, was that ever bad? And the other operator's thinking, hey, I got another contact and I have another membership number or whatever it is they're collecting. So don't be the person who's always studying but never takes the step to get on the air. And I think that is one reason quite a few people end up never going on the air. They quit because they never think they're good enough. Learn to copy and then listen to some of the exchanges on the air. I've had lots of copies with people at 5 words a minute, 8 words a minute, 11 words a minute. And because I do a lot of the SKCC, the Straight Key Century Club, and as I say, if you join them and it's free and you need a straight key, obviously a bug or a cootie, when you go in the first few times, put QRS beside your name and everybody there, they'll see your call sign, they'll see QRS. You can even write, I'm new to CW. And, people will contact you and say, hey, what frequency would you like? What speed would you like? I do a lot of that. I would say at this point, especially on weekends, Probably half my contacts are new people because I can see their membership number, so I know they're new members. And I can sometimes tune them in when they're talking to somebody and listen to the code they're setting, so I know they're new. And in some cases, if they have QRS beside them, that's fine. I'll send them a message and I'll say, "What speed would you like?" I have no problems if you're at 5 words a minute, 8 words a minute, 10 words a minute. Neither do most other operators out there. They're looking for a contact. They don't expect you to be perfect. They know they're not perfect. So don't be the person that thinks you have to be perfect. Don't be the person that thinks you have to be fast. Down the road, if that's your aim, go for it. But in the beginning, at the stage you're at now, it's much more important that you get on the air at whatever speed you're at and get on the air and contact people, exchange information with people. Doesn't matter if you're 8 words a minute, doesn't matter if you're 10 words per minute, 12 words per minute. Simply get on the air. That's the big step. And as we say, no one cares if you make a mistake except you. Anyways, if you like this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe, whichever you want. I do enjoy the comments as well, and I always try and answer them if I can. So it's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, also known as the Shaky Key, wishing you a great day. 73.